Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Tuesday night. We're live, we're national, and the phone number, if you want to join us on our late-night national town hall conversation, feel free to call 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I don't know where to start, but there is plenty of news out there. I'm going to start with some of the big stuff here. We've got Secretary Marco Rubio announcing that Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire. The ball is now in Russia's court. Listen to this.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Yeah, I think everybody hopes the Russians will reciprocate, right? I think everybody is now hopefully on the same page to get peace. Well, somebody that's also looking towards peace is the Premier of Ontario, Canada, Doug Ford. He was talking all that smack. I don't know if you remember. I did. Just a few days ago, we will shut off your power. We'll do this. We'll do that. And all it took was, I think, one really good post on Truth Social of Trump saying, you should be ashamed of yourself because threatening to turn people's power off is not a good look. So that's what's going on in Canada. And guess what? He backed down. Listen to the Premier of Ontario, Canada, Doug Ford.
I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion.
So here we have the Russians and the Ukrainians apparently at the table, right? Ukrainians saying, okay, we're striking a deal, right? Secretary Rubio, I guess, able to negotiate with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Saudi Arabia. Then you've got the Canadians talking all this smack, Trump doubling down, more tariffs. Then they say, okay, hold on. All right. Things are moving. This is what it looks like when you actually do the job. It gets a little sticky, right? But it gets done. So I'm proud of Secretary Rubio. I'm proud of the United States. I'm glad we're moving in the right direction. We're taking a stand. We're being tough. It's what you got to do. And guess what? Newsweek has an incredible report. Should have led with this. The price of eggs has come down. Now, President Trump was outside the White House today, and he was talking about a number of things, not the least of which was the price of eggs and a Tesla. He bought himself a red Tesla to support Elon Musk because the left has been going crazy, blowing them up. Listen to this.
But we didn't have these problems. I had no inflation. I had a great economy. He gave you high prices. You couldn't buy bacon. You couldn't buy anything. And also, I inherited a situation with eggs. The price of eggs was through the roof. Well, now the price of eggs has come down a lot. Interest rates have come down. Gasoline prices have come down. It's all coming down. It's all a beautiful thing. I can do it the right way or the wrong way. We're doing it the right way. And I have tremendous confidence in this country and the people of this country, tremendous confidence, much more so than if I sat back for 4 years and had a good time in the Oval Office.
Again, this new data suggests from the Newsweek piece I'm looking at that the soaring egg prices are now down by almost $2 cheaper than the all-time high just a couple of days ago, right? March of 2025, they hit $8.17. Here we are, still in March of 2025, just 10 days ago, and we're down to $5.51, hopefully getting our way down to $1 or $2 a dozen. Should that be able to happen again, which I'm confident that it will be. It will happen. My concern with when it comes to the economy is really, and it's a question I ask every economist that comes on the show, but my concern is always, can we continue with all the inflation that we have? Now, the egg price thing was, the bird flu and all that craziness. It wasn't just your regular inflation, but you have your regular inflation, and I think some people like it, right? Some people are used to like the guy who rents apartments, right? The guy who owns multifamily dwellings and rents them out for a profit. This guy, the landlord, he loves the inflation because now he can charge more for rent. And I've never, ever, ever, ever seen a landlord go, well, you know what? Inflation's come down about, 6 or 7%. So your rent is coming down 6 or 7%. I've never seen that happen. I doubt that that'll happen. All the shrinkflation that we saw, with cereal boxes getting smaller and lighter and other air-filled packages getting puffier, but, still lighter. all that I maybe will change, but I doubt it. I doubt all that changes with deflation. So even though the dollar might be worth more eventually, and you'll have more buying power with your dollar, I think some things will remain inflated. But the big question is, will houses remain inflated? Will everybody's house that's worth, $800, $900, $1 million, will these houses remain at this $800,000, $900,000, $1 million? Or do they deflate with the rest of the economy to $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, or $600,000, $700,000, $800,000? Some sort of commensurate deflation, where when home prices go down, I would suspect that if that's combined with interest rates that are down and people having more buying power, then they'll say, you know what, I'm going to buy more property, and we can rent more stuff and do more deals. I don't know if the rent goes down, right? Because rent seems to be very high. And I always look at this stuff because, I've got 2 kids that are starting out in life right now. One that's 23. She received her diploma in the mail. She's walking in her graduation in 8 weeks. Just finished college. The other one, second year of college. And it's a different world from when I was a kid. And I understand that, the world changes. But how does one make it? How do you make it at 20-something? Like so many people I know left home at 18, 19, 20 years old, 21. I don't think that's a thing anymore, right? People are staying till they're 30, 31, 32. They're having kids in their 30s. They're getting married in their 30s. When I think that those things used to happen a lot younger. And maybe I'm wrong, but they happened for me younger and most of my peers. So I've always been curious about that. Do we see these things get cheaper? Anyway, I want to continue talking about what's going on geopolitically with everything that's happening in the Middle East and everywhere else. And I want you to keep it locked right here on the radio, because radio, to me, is an important place. I love the radio, and I hope you love radio too. I hope you love the podcast. I hope you love listening to the news. And if you love radio like I do, you need a good radio, the C. Crane CC Radio 3. Why? I'll tell you why. It delivers exceptional spoken word audio. The clarity makes it feel like I'm in the room with you. The CC Radio 3 pulls in long-range AM/FM stations and includes emergency features like the NOAA weather, plus a 2-meter handband. Can't beat that. Now, this stuff runs on a power cord that it comes with, or a set of batteries that'll give you 170 hours. Imagine that. Imagine you're stuck, you can't do anything, but you can listen to the radio. That's encouraging. for 170 hours. The CC Radio 3 is the almost everything radio. So listen to your favorite podcasts, your favorite shows, your favorite music with any type of Bluetooth from smartphones or from any smart speaker. Now, here's how you order. You call C. Crane. They have a U.S.-based customer service number. I'm going to give you the number. Grab a pen. Write it down. 800-522-8863. Or visit ccrane.com/rich. I'll spell it out for you. That's ccrane.com/RICH. And use code RICH at checkout for 10% off all your orders that are over $75.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Trump, there's this protest leader from Columbia University that the administration is moving to deport. He said that his arrest is going to be the first of many. How many?
I think we ought to get them all out of the country. They're troublemakers. They're agitators. They don't love our country. We ought to get them the hell out. I think that guy, we ought to get him. I heard his statements, too. They were plenty bad. And I think we ought to get him the hell out of the country. I watched him. I watched tapes. Specifically, I watched tapes. And you can have them, okay? You can have them. And you can have the rest of them. Let them go to school. Let them learn. Columbia used to be a good school. Now it's been overrun because of bad leadership. That's what happens. Happens to countries, and it happens to universities, and it happens to companies.
And he is discussing Mahmoud Khalil, the young man that had come in from overseas, had studied in Beirut, and was a terrorist sympathizer, and not just rabble-rousing and exercising free speech, as many would put it, but quite actively disrupting the safety and security of our nation, in particular on college campuses. And Speaker Johnson today announcing that people that come to the United States with the express intent of causing problems and promoting terrorism will be arrested and will be removed from the country. So it seems that there's a united front from our administration on this. It's the media that seems to not kind of get the memo, if you will. But I want to get some reaction to that, as well as everything else that's happening in that part of the world, from Israel's foreign ministry special envoy, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I want to make sure, I would be remiss if I didn't let the audience know that you're also former deputy mayor of Jerusalem and joining us live from New York City. So thank you for that. What's your reaction to President Trump's comments?
Well, thank God that somebody is seeing some sanity here. We have somebody on a student visa who is agitating not just against Israel, but against America, who comes on condition of a special type of visa and becomes violent, inciting violence, and supporting a terrorist group. So I think that the President Trump has done the best thing possible. These people are here on condition of a certain behavior. They can't, if they commit crimes as this man has done by endorsing a terrorist group, then he should be kicked out. Otherwise, what incentive is there for good people to come to this country?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that this is well put. And honestly, my disdain and my disappointment here is really on the media in our country that is trying to somehow protect this person by conflating it with something that would normally be a good argument. You know, Madam Envoy, I would be the first person to say, listen, you get to say what you want to say. This is America. But I don't think you get to promote terrorism.
Well, it's a crime. You know, inciting and promoting terrorism is a crime. He is an agent of Hamas. He was basically passing around flyers, propaganda, creating a situation where kids were breaking the law, vandalizing property, breaking into property that they had no business being there, and all the damage that caused, all the police officers that had to go there and defend a police officer that ended up in hospital because of the mobs that this guy rallied around him. He's a criminal. And so a criminal in this country on a student visa should not be permitted to stay in this country.
Yeah, really well put. Now, folks, we're on with Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. She is Israel's Foreign Ministry Special Envoy. And tell us a little bit about your work, and are you pleased with where you are thus far with the current negotiations with Hamas?
Well, look, it's very difficult to be pleased until we have all our hostages home. We estimate there's 28 living hostages and a few tens of dead hostages who their parents want to see buried in the funeral that they deserved for the murders that was done to them. So, it's a very difficult situation. It's very emotional in Israel. Some of these hostages are young kids, and some of them are old grandparents. And Hamas makes absolutely no difference between civilians or anybody else. They essentially murdered two babies and their mother at the beginning of the war. We just got them back to bury them a few weeks ago. And so we pray that that whoever is pressuring the levers that can pressure on Hamas, for example, Qatar, will help get everybody home. We will not be able to get over any of this until all the hostages are home. That's the truth.
How much closer are your negotiations between, the Israelis and the terrorists and Hamas? Is there progress? Do you feel like you're hitting a stalemate? I feel like I'm up in the air watching this from afar.
It's all up in the air. The Israeli negotiators have gone off to Doha, to Qatar. They have a mandate to close a deal. We know that Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy in the Middle East, is also helping. And so we just pray that Hamas, there's enough levers pulled on Qatar to pull on Hamas. Qatar is a very dangerous country because essentially they're hosting terrorists, they're funding terrorists. They also fund the worst poison machine of terrorists, which is Al Jazeera. And they have to be brought to bear. The U.S. have a military base in Qatar. If the U.S. has any lever at all, it's that military base. And so I think there's a lot of pressure to be put on Qatar that they can put on Hamas because they are basically the only people still funding them. And that's what we have to do at the moment. Hamas are a genocidal terrorist organization. They don't care about anything. They don't care about their own civilians. They don't care about our civilians, even less. And so they will only care about themselves and their own survival. And that's the pressure we need to put on it.
Really well put. Madam Special Envoy, please stand by. We're going to come back and continue that conversation and that discussion on Qatar and their influence on terrorism. Folks, we're coming back with Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, Israel's Foreign Ministry's Special Envoy, former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I addressed a summit of more than 50 Arab and Muslim leaders, a unique meeting in the history of nations, where key players in the region agreed to stop supporting terrorism, whether it be financial, military, or even moral support. The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior.
That, of course, President Trump back in June of 2017, calling on Qatar to end its funding for terrorism. Again, that was quite a while ago, and he's still on the same track. Now, fast forward to today, where Adam Boehler, the United States Special Envoy for Hostage Affairs, was on CNN talking about directly negotiating with Hamas. Listen to this.
Axios' reporter Barak Ravid is reporting the top Israeli official Ron Dermer strongly discouraged you from talking directly with Hamas. He said it was a tense phone call. Tell us about that. Do you understand why Netanyahu, Dermer, others might be upset?
I do understand. I spoke with Ron, and I'm sympathetic. He has someone that he doesn't know well, making direct contact with Hamas. Maybe I would see them and say, look, they don't have horns growing out of their head. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. So he doesn't know me, and there are big stakes. He lives in a country where if it sets certain precedents, then it will hurt or help a lot of other people. So I understand the consternation and the concern, and I wasn't upset. At the same time, we're the United States. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests at play, and we did communicate back and forth. We had very specific parameters by which we fell, and the reality is what I wanted to do is jumpstart some negotiations.
Want to jumpstart these negotiations because this is what it's about, right? This has been a big bone of contention. So you've got Trump historically calling on Qatar to stop their funding of terrorism, and simultaneously we have the administration now negotiating with Hamas. So many moving parts. Our guest is here to give us her take on what's going on. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, she's the Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, and she's with us now live in New York City today. Fleur, thank you for being with us again. And when you hear both President Trump's comments from 2017, which echo the sentiment that you were just sharing, and Mr. Boehler's comments from yesterday, where does that put us, and your reaction to both?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, President Trump said exactly the truth, that Qatar sponsors terrorism, sponsors also the poison machine that is the propaganda for terrorism, Al Jazeera. Qatar has bought the souls of American academic institutions and its think tanks. Qatar has got money literally coming out of the ground, and they're using it to not only turn the Western world against Israel, it's using it to turn the Western world against itself. Because in these universities, what they're teaching these kids is that America is a brutal colonialist, imperialist entity, and that instead of aiming and aspiring to the American dream, they have to aim and aspire for the destruction of their own country. This is what they're teaching in universities, sponsored by Qatar. So America has a huge problem, as well as Israel has a huge problem, because Qatar has basically bought the souls of the next generations through academia. And this is something we have to eradicate. And like I said earlier, America's got that lever. The lever is the military base in Qatar. The lever is discrediting Qatar. All Qatar wishes for is standing and status as a country that is on the world stage. If we threaten that standing and that status, then Qatar could easily go our way. Qatar are both the arsonist and the fire extinguisher, and they have to make a choice. And America can make Qatar make that choice, and Trump can do that.
Now, good point, and I think that it can. Your thoughts on the second part of that, with the administration directly negotiating with Hamas and the Special Envoy Boehler's comments?
So, I'm not privy to the conversation that he had with Minister Derma. And I can say that ultimately Israel wants to negotiate for its own people, but anything that Special Envoy can do to bring those hostages home. And I want to remind everyone, there's an American hostage who's living, and a few American hostages have already been murdered, and who Hamas hold their bodies. And so if we can bring them home, we can bring all of them home. And if Bola has done something to push that forward, then me as a mother of children, that I only imagine to myself, what would I be doing? God forbid if it was my children in there. So anything that brings them closer to getting home is something that I would welcome personally.
Yeah, I think we all would. Now, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, I want to get your take on Iran. The mullahs, the Iranian regime, they seem to be getting closer and closer to having the nuclear weapon that they've coveted for quite a long time, and this is their bargaining chip. Yes. Apart from that, it seems like they may not have a lot much else to offer, but it seems like that's enough to be a player in the game. Talk to us about what's going on with Iran and their pursuit of a nuclear weapon.
Well, they've been in pursuit of a nuclear weapon already for 20 years. In the Obama administration, they basically tried to negotiate a deal with them in order for them not to have the nuclear weapon today, but to have it in 10 years, which is ridiculous. And of course, Iran is somebody you can't rely on. They sign an agreement, but they're liars and murderers, and they export terrorism to the entire world. And they hate America even more than they hate Israel. And that is the type of appeasement policy that hasn't helped. In the last Trump administration, he came in, he tore up that agreement, which I think was the right thing to do. And now we're at the point that Iran is at the cusp of having a nuclear weapon and possibly, God forbid, even having the way to get the nuclear weapon to Israel or America. And so I think it's clear, and I think President Trump, when he met Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think what was very clear was that America and Israel together would do anything so that Iran doesn't get nuclear power, nuclear weapons. And I pray, and it may happen sooner than we think, and I think President Trump, speaking in the Oval Office the other day, gave a hint. I think this is going to happen in the next few weeks. I think we're going to see, hopefully, I pray to God, the destruction of a weapon of mass destruction in the hands of genocidal jihadi terrorists. Wow.
Well, that's a lot, and we will stay tuned because this is a cliffhanger. And like I said earlier, I feel like I'm up in the air with all of the developments that are occurring here. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, I want to thank you for being with us and giving us that update. And if you'd be so kind, let everybody that's listening right now know how they can follow your work.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. So I'm on every social media except TikTok. I don't want to give my business to the Chinese. So it's Fleur, F-L-E-U-R-H-N on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on any of the platforms. I have a strange name, but you can find me easily, Fleur Hassan N. And I look forward to being in touch with everyone and to continue to speak the truth that we face here in Israel. Thank you so much for platforming this.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, I want to thank you and wish you Godspeed.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
My pleasure. And amigos, your calls, your thoughts, and your reactions are all coming up next. Plus, there's still more news. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
It's shameful what happened on the Democrat side. They engaged in a misinformation campaign. They put out talking points about the bill on Friday before the bill was even filed, which was Saturday afternoon. They've been lying and misrepresenting the facts about what's in the bill, and the American people can read it for themselves. It's only 99 pages long. We did our job today, and it's shameful that they will stop at nothing. They will suggest that this bill is something that it's not, and they will run out the clock to shut down the government in a desperate attempt to stop the America First agenda. But I will tell you that President Trump and Republicans in Congress will stop at nothing to deliver on that agenda. We are going to continue to work hard. We will continue to stick together and get this job done, and it's an essential one.
That is Speaker Mike Johnson announcing that there will not be a shutdown. He made it very, very clear that the Democrats were peddling fake, phony, fraudulent statements. I think Hakeem Jeffries, and I think we might have played that audio here, saying that the bill would gut Social Security. As I understand it, and I have not read the 99-page bill yet, but as I understand it, nobody is reporting, other than Hakeem Jeffries, that this bill does anything to Social Security, except make sure that the rest of the government has continuity, right? It's a continuing resolution. Anyway, and these are never my favorite, right? We always want to have a balanced budget, not a series of continuing resolutions. But this was the move, and they thought that they would get Democrats to support them, since this is what Democrats typically do. And nada. It was still very difficult. Now, Speaker Johnson went on to talk about, how it passed, 217 to 213. Check this out.
The Republicans stood together, and we had one Democrat vote with us to do the right thing, and that is to fund the government. This was a clean CR. It freezes funding. It's a responsible thing to do. And we're ensuring that troops continue to get their paychecks, and TSA agents continue to do their work and be paid, and essential workers on the border and elsewhere are doing their jobs.
Now, of course, the next step with this is going to be to send this bill to the Senate, where Chuck Schumer and the rest of the folks in the Senate are going to have to make a choice on, do they kill this thing? Do they support this thing? Some people weren't on board, even Republican Thomas Massie, Republican from Kentucky. We have a clip of him explaining why he didn't want to vote for the CR. Listen to this.
When they wanted to do a CR in September 2024, wait till after the election. Then we were told, after the election, wait until we've got the Senate majority installed, and then we'll fight and we'll implement Trump's agenda. But there's no fight in them. It's basically Biden's agenda cut, copied, pasted into the discretionary budget.
So big words there from Thomas Massie, and he got a very big response from Donaldus Magnus El Trumpito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. Earlier today, I was doing what I do on Truth Social, a little scrolly scroll, and I see the post come from President Trump. It was about 8 hours ago. Listen to this. Trump. Maybe I do it in my best Trump impression. Congressman, and he has that in quotes. Thomas Massie voted to delay the debt ceiling bill from the Biden administration to the Trump administration from September before the election to June after the election without getting anything for this horrendously stupid move. Now, so Trump's calling him out for saying, why'd you give that away? Right? Why didn't you get something in return? And highlighting, Republicans could have gotten everything they wanted. He additionally voted to delay the current budget disaster from the Biden administration to the Trump administration, saying that when he was running for president at the time, doing his own thing, and when he heard about it, it was quite simply hard to believe. Trump says this was a catastrophic mistake. Now, virtually on every other vote, he's a very simple no. He can't even approve a continuing resolution, when he approved them many times during his career as a quote-unquote congressman. Thomas Massie is a grandstander, and the great people of Kentucky are going to be watching a very interesting primary in the not-too-distant future. Now, what caught my eye with that it wasn't a tweet, it was on Truth Social. But what caught my eye there, just to briefly, was this: the great people of Kentucky. Isn't it interesting that it's hard to get a, I guess, run-of-the-mill conservative Republican out of Kentucky? I think many people would say, oh, that's, a red state. Yeah. But who are our electeds there? Well, we've got Rand Paul, who I like Rand Paul, but he's definitely, marching to the beat of his own drum most times, right? Very libertarian. Not faulting him, just highlighting the fact that he's outside of the bubble. And that's fine. Thomas Massie seems to always be outside of the bubble as well. And Mitch McConnell, he's got his own bubble, right? Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie. Very interesting, these Republicans in Kentucky. And it just, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the nuance and opinion and all of it. I really do. I don't mind it. I'm not saying they have to vote and think and act in lockstep with the others. I'm not a fan of groupthink. But I just think, man, either Kentucky is the most heterodoxically diverse, intellectually diverse state in the union, or there's a lack of coalescing people that are like-minded. I don't know which one of the two it is, but I just find it interesting. Anyway, your thoughts and calls when we come back. Plus, I got a few more things. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with open phones across America. Let's go to Idaho, Boise, Idaho, and check in with our man, Paulie. Go for it, KBOI.
Good evening, Rich. Thanks for calling on me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just catching up on a little bit of reading and had a long day today, but, nevertheless, I'm at home safe and sound, and I don't have to worry about going to the hospital tonight because my parents want to change me from a boy into a girl.
Yeah.
I'll never be the same.
Thank God for that.
I'll never have children, even though they tell me that I might have children someday, or that I'll have menopause, or that I'll have this, or I'll have that. I won't have the headaches that come with menopause, and it's just the biggest sham you've ever seen in your life. When it comes to somebody that was really sick and beyond twisted, was Joseph Mengele, the famed doctor of Auschwitz, the experimental doctor. And he did these kind of experiments on kids. That's what he did.
And he's not the only crazy Nazi doctor out there. There were others, and not just doctors, but crazy Nazis. And the other night, we had a caller, David from San Diego. He called in. And he was beating me up, and he was, I guess making the correlation between me and Lord Haw-Haw, whatever that guy's name was, and the Nazi propagandist, a guy named William Joyce, who was a radio broadcaster, and I just thought, isn't it interesting how they pick the most disgusting people to do what they do. Thanks for the call, Paul. I appreciate it. Amigos, the music means it's time to go. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. And if you're still around, I'll be right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? Welcome back. It's Rich Valdez. We continue our late night national town hall conversation. And of course, you can find me at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo, or you can give us a call. We're live, we're national. It's about 7 minutes after 10 p.m., and I'm looking forward to speaking with you on open phones across America. We'll be taking your calls in the last 2 to 3 segments of each hour. And the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to start off with the news that the price of eggs are down. White House Press Secretary today, Caroline Leavitt, announcing that egg prices are down, that being corroborated by Newsweek as well. Listen to this.
We definitely do share the concerns of the American people when it comes to the price of eggs. However, good news, the average cost of a dozen eggs is actually down since Secretary Rollins and President Trump announced their plan. It's down $1.85. So that's good news on the cost of eggs. And as we know, under the Biden administration, egg prices went up 22%. This is another example of an economic mess that President Trump inherited, and the Secretary of Agriculture and the President are focused on fixing it. Secretary Rollins put out a 4-point plan, to address this crisis. And she has been honest and realistic with the American people, as this administration always is. It will take about 3 to 6 months to get the egg supply back to where it should be. But she's focused, and this administration is focused on doing that every day.
That's Caroline Leavitt, White House Press Secretary. And again, the piece in Newsweek, take two, the piece in Newsweek, citing a number of things like the bird flu and other things that were causing these prices to go up. Mainly the bird flu outbreak, which, they caused 111 million chickens, mostly egg-laying hens, that were infected or had to be put down for whatever reason between February of 22 and January of 2025. Other problems such as inflation, supply chain issues, transportation costs that have been increased, and new state animal welfare regulations have all contributed to the high cost of eggs. So I get it. A lot's going on here. President Trump saying, come on, shut up about this already. And he caught some flack for that. But it's working, right? Newsweek here reporting that things are the cost of eggs are down about $2. So kudos to El Trumpito on that one. And they couldn't stay up forever. People like me just stop eating eggs. At least, buying them. I haven't bought eggs in forever. Honestly, forever. Probably close to a year. Anyway, I want to continue. We had that discussion. President Trump talking about bringing down prices, talking about ending the war. So much things happening. An announcement made earlier today about the ceasefire that has now occurred, right? Because Ukraine has agreed to a ceasefire with Russia. So the question now is, will there be agreement, right? Will there be agreement from the Russians and the Ukrainians and the United States? I don't know. But National Security Advisor Mike Waltz was with Secretary Rubio in Saudi Arabia today and reiterating it's not about when, it's about, or not about how, it's about when the war will end. Listen to this.
We've discussed a number of things, prisoner exchanges, folks that were detained and what have you, but the fighting has to stop. I mean, that's what we agreed today. And just think about it. We've gone from if the war is going to end to now how the war is going to end. And this was an important first step. And that was under President Trump's leadership. He has literally moved the entire global conversation to where we had a very senior Ukrainian delegation with us today. We've had engagements with our Russian counterparts. And now it's how the war is going to end. And that's under President Trump's leadership.
And we'll keep you up to speed on that as that develops. That was just, again, from earlier today that Ukraine has agreed to these terms. Now, I want to talk about the budget issue because we were looking at a government shutdown, right? The media is fascinated with these government shutdowns. I could care less, honestly. And you probably know that by now. But Speaker Johnson announcing today that we have totally avoided the shutdown, at least thus far. He doesn't expect it to happen. Let's see what the Senate does. Listen to this.
Anybody?
Expecting a shutdown?
I certainly hope not. I believe they'll do it. I believe the Republicans will stick together in the Senate as we have in the House. And I hope there are at least a number of Democrats in the Senate who will do the right thing. If not, this will be on their shoulders, and everybody in America knows that.
Blaming the Democrats for lying about the bill, and Speaker Johnson doubling down that they did what they had to do in the House. Now it's up to Chuck Schumer and those in the Senate.
Now that the government funding bill has been passed out of the House, we send it to the Senate, and it falls on the desk of Chuck Schumer. He is the leader of the Democrats on that side, and he must determine whether he wants to fund the government, do the responsible thing, or whether he wants to shut the government down. And I certainly hope that there are enough Democrats in the Senate who have a conscience, who will do the right thing by the American people and take care of business over there.
So now that we have the Senate not being shut down, or I should say the government not being shut down, will the Senate act accordingly? I don't know. But I'm always on board for a good government shutdown, honestly. I'm always on board for cutting government programs. I'm always on board for all that stuff. But I'll tell you who's not on board for that. Sometimes it's the federal courts, because they are slowing down El Trompito and the Doge people with their cost-cutting measures. And this lawsuit that was brought saying, no, you cannot stop this $2 billion in funding has been quite a nuisance. I want to get some reaction to that and find out what is the scoop here, because I think it should happen, but I think I'm alone here. At least the court is not in agreement with you and me on this one. So we're going to have that discussion straight ahead from the legal perspective. And, of course, your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito accused this district court judge, his name is Amir Ali, of abusing his authority, ignoring the law on sovereign immunity, which is clear. And Alito's right. You know, the president has vested powers under the Constitution to order executive agencies to freeze money. You can do it for reasons of foreign policy, national security, to avoid waste. So, you know, this decision by Judge Ali, who, by the way, is a Biden appointee, he's been on the court for a nanosecond, that forces Trump to spend $2 billion is judicial activism run amok. I think it'll eventually be overturned by the Supreme Court, but by then it's too late. That, you know, this judge is forcing Trump to pay $2 billion. They'll never get that back.
That's Greg Jarrett giving an update on the Fox News channel about this particular case. And I want to get to the bottom of it as well, because the Supreme Court denying the Trump administration request to block this $2 million foreign aid payout. And many believe, myself included, that the administration acting on behalf of the people who elected this administration to do that. But am I thinking with my emotions? Am I thinking with my legalese hat on? Am I thinking politically? We're going to find out what the law has to say about this with attorney Mark Miller. He's with Pacific Legal, and he's with us now. Mark, welcome.
Rich, always nice to join you.
Thank you, sir. And I want to get your take on this, because you just heard the analysis from Greg Jarrett that this is judicial activism. That was his take. Where do you weigh in on this?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of amazing. We had a 5-4 decision, Justice Alito writing for Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Thomas, that they did not think that trial judge, that recent Biden appointee, had the authority to order the administration just to release $2 billion with a B, and that the executive branch, President Trump, had the right to say, wait a minute, I'm not sure that all that money is owed. I don't know if you've done the work that we contracted with you to do. I don't know if perhaps some of this money that we owe you is for unconstitutional work, or as Greg said in that clip you played, maybe there's some sort of national defense aspect to it that I would like to examine. And the administration didn't say, we don't owe the money. They said, we want to review. We want to press pause. And so what was remarkable, and Justice Alito called it stunning, is that a majority of the court said, no, even though this is basically a contract dispute, we are going to do, as you said, we're going to order the $2 billion, we're going to approve the $2 billion being paid over. Now, I'll say some of that was reeled in by Judge Ali yesterday. So right now it's $600 million, but he still is holding authority to release the rest of the $2 billion. But bottom line, it is kind of a stunning decision. Even if you think USAID, that much of this money probably is owed, it's just not unusual in a contract dispute for one side to say, I don't think you've performed. I want to fight about it in court. That's just what happens every day. And I don't know why the Supreme Court, in this case, the majority, allowed the district judge to treat this case differently, other than the fact that President Trump was involved.
Now, Mark Miller, that sounds like a generous way of saying these guys are acting politically. Now, that's my words, not yours. But it seems like they're really trying to influence the policy decisions of the administration through, I'll dare call it lawfare, or their use of the interpretation of this case. And I wonder what's the next step? What does the administration now do, or has it used up all its recourse?
Well, I think number one, you're saying they acted politically. Professor Goldsmith at Harvard Law, what he said they were doing, and it's kind of similar, just a different word. He said temporizing, and what he meant by that is the justices are trying to avoid hard issues. They're trying to kick the can down the road a little bit, and here they think if the money gets paid over, then you can fight about it in court. But as you said, the chances are, if the administration were to win on some of these contracts, some of that $2 billion, if they've already paid it, how are they going to get it back? How are they going to claw it back? But that's what's going to happen. I think this administration is not going to back down. And even if they pay it over, I think right now $600 million, and ultimately if it's $2 billion, I think you will see the administration spend the next 4 years trying to claw back every dollar, at least as much as they can, because they're trying to prove a point. They're trying to prove a point that you got at earlier, which is that the president has this authority, whether we call it to impound the money, to take care, as another way of calling under the Constitution, to take care the laws are faithfully executed. The president, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, has authority to say, I want to make sure we're spending America's taxpayer money correctly.
Thank you, and I appreciate those thoughts. I want to circle back to something you just said, because I think it's interesting. You said that some Harvard professor was saying that they are temporizing and avoiding difficult situations. And I have to think, and I'm thinking out loud, but it's a real question. You've got, I don't know, William Rehnquist, Alito, Scalia, Clarence Thomas. I mean, so many phenomenal jurists on the Supreme Court that don't strike me as wallflowers. Why do we constantly hear that the court is taking this wallflower-ish approach of, we don't want to take care of these issues, or we don't want to be perceived this way or that way? Why do they care?
Well, I suppose they care, and I think it's probably the Chief Justice. Most people speculate that is most concerned with is the public's impression of the court, that the court is not acting politically, that just because we have 6 Republican appointees and 3 Democrat appointees, that does not mean that every decision is going to come down red versus blue because we have 6 Republican appointees. To give him the benefit of the doubt, to make the best argument for him, is, look, we are a court of law. We follow the rule of law. And so if we can avoid cases where we look like we're playing favorites and just picking the partisan favorite, then the public will like that. And in the court's defense, the expression I've heard recently is a steel man rather than a straw man argument to make the best argument for the court. In fact, in some of these cases where the court is, quote, temporizing or trying to kick the can down the road a little bit, ultimately, the president is winning. Recently, someone named Hampton Dellinger, who was a Democrat appointee, a Biden appointee to special counsel role. President wanted to fire him. Mr. Dellinger said, no, you don't have the right to. And initially, he won briefly for a few weeks, but he finally had to give up and throw in the towel. And so even though the Supreme Court didn't get involved there, they kind of were rewarded. The justices were rewarded because ultimately President Trump won that fight. And so I think the court, again, making the best argument for Chief Justice Roberts, which is more than fair to do, is they're hoping to avoid looking too partisan and thinking that circumstances will unwind in ways that President Trump will be ultimately happy about, and so they don't need to get involved.
Okay, I'll accept that. And I agree with you that there's been a series of wins. And I wouldn't say they're for Trump. I'd say they're for America, for truth, for doing the right thing. But that could be my own biases that are seeing them that way. So I'll accept what you're saying. And I'm glad you put it that way. Because, it's easy for me to, go off the deep end and start thinking politically about everything. Now, ultimately, this, you think, gets resolved by the administration just taking continued action in the future? Is there any guarantee or any, maybe that's not the best word, any hope that we're not going to continue to see this type of judicial activism, if you will, every time they're trying to make cuts?
Well, hope springs eternal. I am an optimist, but Rich, I don't think so. I think we have to be realistic here. The Democrats, those who are on the left side of the aisle, they're going to do everything they can do, just like they did in the first term. And frankly, just like Republicans did against President Biden, they'll do everything they can to undercut him and make the point that they think President Trump is overreaching. What's interesting about this is if either side would recognize there's some validity to the other, their president would then have more power. Because ultimately, what President Trump is saying, and you made the point, Rich, this isn't a partisan point. Whether it's Republicans or Democrats, the Constitution gives the president a great deal of power as the chief executive. But for some reason, the Democrats don't want to concede that, even though when they win the presidency, which is ultimately going to happen sooner or later, it would benefit their side. And again, we shouldn't talk about sides. This is what's best for all Americans. And, Pacific Legal Foundation, we believe in that. We believe that the president has quite a bit of power. We also believe Congress should be writing laws. Each branch has important, powers that the Constitution gives.
Right.
Neither, the parties are constantly fighting about it. They actually agree on a lot. And, maybe we could get this country moving forward if they would work together a little more. Outstanding
analysis. Mark Miller, senior attorney at Pacific Legal Foundation. Make sure you give him a follow at pacificlegal.org. Mark, thanks for being here. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, we come back. Your thoughts and more, your calls, open phones across America, and a really good clip of audio. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until midnight in some areas and others till 1 a.m. 833-482-5337. Working the late shift, live and national. 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to go to Alan calling us from Amarillo, Texas. KGNC, go for it.
Well, thank you very much. And you're coming in loud and clear, although Amarillo, because it's a live show, the only way I can participate live with you, it's 110 miles away, but it's coming in great tonight. Then
Amen to that.
on a delayed basis and to KRFE from 12 to 3, and then I can pick again from 3 to 4 on.
Gotcha. Well, you were coming in loud and clear, and now you're not. Alan, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, try to make your point because you're starting to chop up. I don't know if you're on the road or what.
Okay, my point is I'm extremely disappointed in the same Republicans that were texting me on my phone, and I voted Trump all the time, but telling me promises made and then promises kept. What they did by passing that continuing resolution is promises made, promises broken, because they supposedly were against continuing resolutions. And now they funded the Biden administration fiscal year funding for 2025, which ends the end of September. They funded it, and there was a 39% increase in year-over-year spending on that Biden budget. So they haven't frozen anything by approving that CR.
Yeah. Now, Alan, a lot of people are in agreement with you. I can tell you that I heard that this the same thing you're saying. I heard from several members of Congress earlier today that were making this point. You've got Thomas Massey making a completely different point. And I find it interesting that, politics is one of these things that you have to be principled with most of it, right? I say most because I would be lying if I said there are things that I was not crazy about that I would support just because you need the voting bloc, the power, the strength, the votes, if you will. And I understand politics enough to realize that compromise is a part of this business. And I'm with you. I'm a radio guy. In Radio Land, we just live to criticize those that are doing the work and complain that they're not conservative enough. At least that's what I live for, right? I live to say, oh, this guy's a rhino. Unbelievable. I can't believe him. They're destroying the country. But having had the benefit of working in state government, I can tell you, Alan, that there are times where you really have to pick and choose your battles. And I think that's what Trump did here. I think Trump said, look, we got to get this done. We've got to get this. We need this funded. If we have to play ball a little bit with these guys, we will. They got, one Democrat to jump on board with them to get this done. And I think it sends a message to the middle, not you or me, but to the middle, that Trump is doing everything in his power to make things work. And I think that is a good message to send and to have received by the American public. Alan, thank you for your call, my friend. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody listening on both your live station and your delayed station, KGNC being one of them. Thank you, sir. And let me see. Well, I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to get to the rest of your calls. Plus, there is a woman that's being very heavily promoted. Her name is Elisa Slotkin, and she's a United States senator. And she gave the response to the State of the Union, or I should say the joint session of Congress, just last week. And she had a lot more to say today. And I want to get into some of that because I just find the whole thing interesting and a little bit curious. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez live with you until midnight and 1 a.m. in some areas. So keep it locked right here. We continue with open phones across America. Your calls and more coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to direct your attention very briefly to everybody's favorite television program. I'm kidding. It's The View. And there is a woman named United States Senator Elise Slotkin. And some of you may know her. Others of you may have just begun hearing her name. And that's because she gave the response to the president's address the other night. Now, Miss Slotkin says a lot of interesting things here. She's on The View today. It's a very short clip, but so much in it. So we're going to take it step by step. Listen to this.
I think there's a feeling in the country. I mean, I often say this, we're about to turn 250 years old, right? We're still pretty young for a country. These are our like our angry teenage years, right? We are going through this push and pull where we're happy, we're sad, we want this,
Hold on a second now. What teenager is 250 years old? Now, I get the analogy. She's saying we're a young nation. I get it. But we're happy, we're sad. We're happy, we're sad. Now, hold on a second. I don't believe that's the case. I think most people are sad. The only people that are happy are the people who voted for Trump because they're hopeful that they're going to make some money. And right now, making money, it's going to take a couple of more weeks, maybe a month and a half, right? Because we have so much garbage in our system. And by garbage in our system, and I'm talking about the biggest growth we've seen on these job reports that are coming in, that they're saying, oh, it's not quite the jobs report we want. Excuse me. The growth is coming from the private, from the public sector. It's the government that's creating these jobs. Right? This is all part of the Biden plan. This is how it worked. You've got the Fed buying treasuries, right, to manage the cost on that. So when we have these pictures that are painted, they're not even real pictures, right? We actually have to process what's happening here. It's kind of like, if you work out in the gym and you spent a weekend binging garbage food, you may not feel like garbage the day you eat the food, and maybe you did, but you're also going to feel like garbage and have all of those extra calories in your system for days to come until they're all burned up. And that's what we're doing right now. So when you hear about, because the stock market and this and that, Biden has done a number on us. We haven't processed all of that through our system, so to speak. Right? I think we're still purging a lot of that. So anyway, we're not a 250-year-old teenager, and I don't know anybody who's happy. Go ahead.
And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive so that their brain can fully form and you can come back to kind of what a country.
Talking about Trump?
No, I'm talking about our country. We're pendulum swinging. And so for me, I think I don't think there's a single American who feels like this is normal.
Listen, I don't know what she's referring to here by what is normal, but what I can tell you is what Americans didn't think was normal was everything that Trump pointed out during his campaign, right? The fact that we had this disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, something that he negotiated and planned for a certain way, and Biden ran it roughshod and very, very poorly. By the way, the person who bombed those 13 soldiers that killed them was arrested. So kudos to El Trompito for, again, promises made, promises kept. But interestingly, Ms. Slotkin, Senator Slotkin, says that we're pendulum swinging. I don't think this country is as indecisive as she's trying to paint us to be. America's not a petulant child or a petulant teenager without a fully formed brain, right, as she's suggesting. That's not the case. And I for one, I take some exception to that. I don't need her to help me formulate my opinion. I can listen to what she has to say and what Whoopi has to say and what the rest of them have to say. and what I have to say, right? Because I know where I'm at with these things, and I think most people know where they're at. So, Senator Slotkin, no thank you. I'm not buying it. And insulting America the way you have, suggesting that, you're just trying to keep your teenager alive. Listen, I don't even know if you have teenagers. I mean, as far as I know, you don't even have children, right? She might have been a stepmom for a while, which, again, is a very serious job. I'm not going to downplay it. But I've never been a stepmom, but I have been a dad. And I can tell you, if you're raising a child, whether, you're the biological parent or not, this is a big deal. And I believe she did serve as a stepmom. But I don't know if these kids were teenagers or if they were teenagers after their divorce or what. So I can't comment on that. But I can say that she's trying to find middle ground. And I don't fault her for that. I only fault her for insulting America and the American people. That's not necessary, and it's not a good idea. Anyway, your calls and more are coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
It's an attempt to attack universities using any excuse possible.
Yale University's philosophy professor Jason Stanley believes the investigation into anti-Semitism at Yale University by the Department of Education is all for show. This comes after the Department of Ed sent letters to 60 universities saying they were being investigated for not protecting Jewish students on campus during the pro-Palestine protests that happened at various schools in 2024. Stanley points out Jewish students were also involved in those protests.
To me, what's anti-Semitic is to say that anyone who criticizes the actions Israel has been doing in Gaza is anti-Semitic.
Yale University responded in a statement reading in part, Yale has long been committed to combating anti-Semitism and strives to ensure that its Jewish community, along with all communities at Yale, are treated with dignity, respect, and compassion. In addition to the investigation, the Anti-Defamation League gave Yale a D grade in its anti-Semitism report card. Stanley believes that's a misleading conclusion.
A lot of Jewish faculty and Jewish students care about Israel's behavior, and criticizing Israel, disagreements among ourselves, that's what Jewish people do.
Jennifer Cuevas, NBC, Connecticut News.
So this is a fundamental question, right? That they're trying to reframe the debate. All I can tell you is I'm old enough to remember a year ago when there were professors in Philly that were part of these protests that were saying, God de-America, and they hope that Hamas does X, Y, and Z. I hope I'm not the only one remembering this. We played the audio several times here. The guy was out there outside of a university in a local city park, and that was just one clip that stands out to me, that this is not about criticizing Israel or not agreeing on Israel's particular position. It has nothing to do with that. When you're calling for the eradication of people and saying, I hope that that Hamas is able to murder these people, this is no longer a difference of opinion. And if you're going to say, well, it's a difference of opinion, you think that I should not be in support of genocide, and I do. I think I should. I think it's great that, we have this group that wants to eliminate these people that I think are horrible. Well, then you're a monster, right? And we have to call that out for what it is. We don't just say this is a simple disagreement, right? Like Joe Biden did in his one of his town halls leading up to his nomination for president of the United States, when they asked him about the genocidal regime in China, he said, well, they do things differently than we do. We see things differently. Excuse me? We see things differently. They kill their people. Last I heard, the American government doesn't, at least publicly, kill their people, right? Now, once we get the JFK files, we're going to find out a little bit more. And will we get them? I don't know. You know me, I'm a skeptic on those things. I'll always say, too good to be true. We're never going to know what's going on. I don't believe we'll ever know. But bottom line here, these people are nuts, many of them. So to sit here and just say it's a critique on a difference of opinion is incredibly disingenuous and, intellectually bankrupt, honestly. Now, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon is warning 60 colleges because of their known and documented anti-Semitism. And if they're smart, they'll figure out a way to get around this without repeating the offense. Anyway, so that's part of what's going on there. Now, Count, we had some reaction, not necessarily for this, but to the budget situation, the continuing resolution from Jasmine Crockett, or I should say Croquet, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett weighing in on today's vote in Congress to fund the government. Listen to this.
Yeah, I'm going to say that we don't want the government to shut down. And frankly, this president has single-handedly not just been shutting the government down, but literally trying to dismantle it. And I haven't heard a word out of them. In addition to that, we know that we have been talking about impoundment, which is basically saying, hey, the power of the purse belongs to Congress. Well, guess what? Our speaker doesn't act that way. He doesn't get out there and say, hey, Mr. President, you can't do this. Once we've appropriated dollars, then these dollars are supposed to be for this. And one of the things that they're not talking about in this continuing resolution is the fact that they are going to give even more latitude. This is basically going to be a slush fund for Elon and Donald Trump. They are getting rid of the parameters around the spending. I think the comparison was that we have maybe 88 total pages of kind of whatever the parameters are for how the monies are to be spent. But the majority of the discretion goes to Trump and Elon, when we normally had, I think in our last one, typically we have about 2,800 pages.
2,800. So the Republicans, she's basically saying they've streamlined the bill. It's 99 pages. It's not 2,800 pages. She's voting for big government. They're trying to streamline this process to get through it because they want to get something done. You've got Republicans that are upset with Republicans because they're even doing this. And you've got Democrats upset with Republicans. And this is what I was saying before. Sometimes you can't win. And that's a reality of this job. Not my job, their job as members of Congress. They can't always win. There's always going to be somebody that you upset along the way. I get it. Anyway, folks, the music means I've got to go, but I'm coming back with another hour. Stimulating talk, very interesting stuff. Your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to have some conversation in the next hour around taxes. Your taxes and mine. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo working the late shift with you tonight. We're live, we're national. I'm thrilled to be here with you. It is, I don't know, what day of the week is it? Count. Tuesday night. I never know the day of the week. That's alarming. But Tuesday night, and I have it right in front of me, Tuesday the 11th. And we're taking your calls, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And part of what I want to talk about tonight is, of course, we have averted a government shutdown. Now, I never really care about those things. In fact, I'm one of those guys that's like secretly rooting for the shutdown to happen and how long it can last, just so I can come on the radio and say, look at that. We just did 21 days. Beautiful. I didn't feel a thing, right? Because I think most of us don't feel a thing. Now, I understand I might be alone, or at least a part of the minority here, not ethnic minority, but the minority in this thought process that somehow we're all affected by this. I don't feel that we're all affected. No, I don't. I think it's the swamp that's affected by it. It's government workers that don't get paid. It's the government workers that are out of luck until they get their, they get furloughed and then they get their retroactive pay. So no harm, no foul, right? In my opinion. Now, I know somebody's going to call me and say, I like you and I voted for Trump, but you're always beating up the government workers. I wish we had less. Thank you. Sorry. I wish we had less government workers. I wish we had less government. I wish the government was not involved in banking, centralized banking. So many things I wish for. I understand I can't have my utopian conservative dream. I understand, right? That's just as bad as the utopians who want their Marxist dream. I get that too. And I realize that we're gonna struggle to. I don't want to use the term meet in the middle, but we're going to struggle to arrive where we arrive. And that's a reality of life. And part of the struggle is some people pushing for a government shutdown, others not. And some people might say, well, nobody should be rooting for the government shutdown. Well, I am. I am rooting for it. I want Americans to have gone through it so often that they go, well, who cares? Nothing really happens anyway. I want them to have my approach. I want them to look at it that way so they could say, you know what, maybe we don't even need that agency. If you can go 21 days, 30 days without these people, maybe they're unnecessary. This is why the Democrats fight this. They don't want you to know that you could get by without the government. They want to make it seem very doom and very gloom. And I get it. I do. But I don't agree. Now, we've got Bernard Sanders, Senator from Vermont. Bernie Sanders weighing in, saying that today's government is a government, it's of the billionaires. Listen to this.
Do you see America moving to a kleptocracy where, people have loyalty oaths if you want to get a job in the civil service, where, pay money, you get access?
Well, look, you got... during Trump's inaugural, as you know, the three richest guys in the country, Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg were there, and right behind them were 13 other billionaires who Trump had nominated to head major government agencies. So I would say, without any doubt, that you have a government right now. Lincoln talks about a government of the people, by the people, for the people. I think it's fair to say you have a government today of the billionaires, by the billionaires, and for the billionaires.
Now, Bernie, a government of the billionaires, for the billionaires, billionaires and more billionaires. I got to say, I enjoy a government of the billionaires much more than I enjoyed the kleptocracy of Joe Biden. The open border. Do we forget? Did we forget what it was like to have caravan upon caravan upon caravan of people pouring into the interior of our country, right through the southern border? The modern day slave trade, the largest human smuggling operation known to man happening right beneath our noses at our southern border, sanctioned and paid for by the United States government under the leadership of Joe El Baboso Biden and Kamala Harris. Did we forget that? Did we forget the highest inflation in more than 4 decades, 43, 44 years? Did we forget about all of the attacks on U.S. Men and women in service? The brain injuries from the Houthi terrorist rebels, from the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan? Right? And so, well, Trump wanted to leave it. Yes, he did. And he was going to do a lot better job of it, guaranteed, than what happened. It's interesting. These are just some of the problems that I think are better today. And yet, we still have this line of conversation. Now you've got one of his besties, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, on the floor today, saying that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who she refers to as the co-president, are shutting down the federal government. Listen to this.
Donald Trump and co-president Elon Musk are shutting down the federal government one piece at a time. Shutting down the agency that stops banks and payday lenders from cheating working people. Shutting down children's cancer research. Shutting down key parts of the Department of Transportation, the agency responsible for keeping people safe when they're flying airplanes. Even shutting down parts of the Social Security Administration. And now, Republicans in Congress are laying out their blueprint to shut down the entire federal government. A budget is a reflection of our values, and this proposal makes clear where the Republicans' values lie. After months of bipartisan talks, they're walking away from the negotiating table and offering a non-starter House bill that forces us to the brink of a full government shutdown. And who would be hurt the most? Working people. Billionaires win, families lose.
I want to know, how does the billionaire win if we're shutting down federal agencies? How is there any logic in this? Bernie's talking about the government of the billionaires. They're using the billionaire line because Trump is a billionaire, because Musk is a billionaire. And so they want to say, all right, these guys are bad. Let's say the billionaires are bad. Okay, they've been doing that for a long time. But how does this benefit billionaires? Wouldn't it, I don't see it. I see it benefiting the American people. We shut down many of our agencies and we don't have daily operations. Guess what? We save money. It doesn't seem like it's for the billionaires. It seems like it's for the people, of the people and by the people. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here, but these guys are off their rockers. But one thing I can tell you is they're not shutting down anything, because in reality, today, House Speaker Mike Johnson, he announced that they have reached a bill and passed the bill, and it's now going to the Senate. I want you to listen to number 24.
The Republicans stood together, and we had one Democrat vote with us to do the right thing, and that is to fund the government. This was a clean CR. It freezes funding. It's a responsible thing to do. And we're ensuring that troops continue to get their paychecks and TSA agents continue to do their work and be paid. And essential workers on the border and elsewhere are doing their jobs.
So are those the billionaires you're talking about? The people that work in the government? Or are those the people that are going to get screwed if Elizabeth Warren doesn't vote for this? And she's indicating that she might not. I don't know. I don't think anybody's buying this stuff. Anyway, I want to talk about the rest of the so-called billionaires, you, me, the American people, and the tax dilemmas that we face. We're going to talk about taxes and so much more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, think about it. Donald Trump announces the External Revenue Service, and his goal is very simple:
to abolish. His goal is to abolish the Internal Revenue Service and let all the outsiders pay. I mean, this is someone who is focused on America.
That is Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick on Trump's idea, desire, hope, goal, and wish, and I'm with him 100% on this, of getting rid of the IRS. And I love the idea. A lot of people are, on the fence with it. But I want to talk about taxes overall, because ultimately, will we actually lose the IRS? And a little further down the conversation, down this hour, will we get our taxes right? Right? That's always a dilemma each and every year. So I want to bring in somebody who knows exactly what's going on. Mark Quann is the author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, Use the Buy, Borrow, Die strategy to get rich and stay rich. And I'd like to get his take on what's going on. Mark Quann, welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. I noticed your pronouns are el macho. Those are good pronouns there. That's good.
Thank you. Yes, I identify as el macho for anybody who's questioning that.
You cracked me up, man. Thanks for making me laugh. That was awesome.
You bet. Well, Mark, I want to get into this because, and again, I realize there's people on every side of the fence on this issue. I tend to think that if tariffs are implemented well and strategically, it will work for us. I tend to think if they're done poorly, as we've seen in our own history in the past, they can cost us dearly and put us in a predicament. So let's talk about getting rid of the IRS, or at least zeroing out our tax rate. What are your thoughts on that actually happening?
I think it's a great idea. Obviously, if I know my book won't be selling anything more if it does that. But no, I'm 100% on board with it, right? But if you're a business, it has to be run like a business. Obviously, if we have income coming in one area, we don't just stop the income. We have to replace it with another income. So Trump's not a stupid guy. He's a negotiator, and he has like the smartest guy in the world who runs businesses right next to him. So they're obviously not going to cut anything that's necessary, and they're gonna replace income streams or reduce waste. And right now they're just in the cutting, reduce fraud, reduce waste. They're gonna hit that for the next year or so, and then once they know where do we stand now, how much money was actually being wasted, how much was fraud, what does the income situation look like? It's just like what every business owner does. They look at their income minus their expenses, and they go, all right, how do we generate more income while also reducing our expenses and making our businesses efficient, right? I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. Every day as a business owner, I wake up and I say, how do I increase revenue? How do I increase efficiency, reduce costs, and compete in the markets, right? To run my business. That's how the government should have been run, but it's actually the opposite, right? It's you use it or lose it. So you give them $5 billion, I guarantee they'll spend the $5 billion, and it doesn't matter how they spend it, because if they don't renew it next year. So they're actually rewarded for blowing the $5 billion. Now let's say you give them $10 billion next year. Well, they're going to spend $10 billion guaranteed. They're actually rewarded. It's the opposite of running a business. They're rewarded for waste. They're rewarded for inefficiencies. The more money they spend, the more jobs they create, as they say. But it's not jobs they're creating. There's no government employees paid by the government. These are employees paid by everybody else that's paying their taxes. There's no government funding. It's taxpayer funded. So, they just don't think like business owners. They're just employees who are just trying to make their way, and if they get a good job and they can kind of sit around and hang out and and sort of work whenever they want, who wouldn't want a job like that?
Yeah, I'm with you, Mark Quann.
So, right?
Yeah, totally. It does suck for the rest of us. Folks, we're on with Mark Quann. He's the author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, Use the Buy, Borrow, Die strategy to get rich and stay rich. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about some tax tips that could help all of us. But I want to continue on this vein, because I think that it scares a lot of people into thinking that if everything is going to be driven by tariffs and we're going to try and repair trade imbalances, that somehow this is going to trigger a trade war. And I would say that there's always a risk of a trade war, and we see it every day, right? That's, I think, kind of the, I guess it's like saying, hey, look, along with free speech comes the risk of your feelings being hurt, and somebody telling you something you don't like to hear. That's just part and parcel of how the system works. And my thinking is that we can do far better with free trade or even fair trade than we could with the system we have now of the IRS. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just tariffs are just a negotiating tool. That's what Trump does. He's a master negotiator. So he says, we're going to do this. And he says, we're going to do this. And everyone's scared. And they say, oh, he's just going to destroy everything. But it's a negotiating tool. He just wants a better position. He wants to get a better terms in a deal. And that's what he does. And look at all the money. I mean, Apple setting up plants here. You're going to have made in America again. Trump's been talking about this for a very long time. It's not like Trump just said, wow, these problems exist. Like there's an interview with Trump in 1988 on Oprah, and he's talking about how Japan is taking advantage of America, right? And he was like, well, the United States is getting screwed. And this is in 1988. And Oprah was praising him and that video. So this has been happening. I've seen it happen myself. I mean, I'm like, are you kidding me? America is putting everybody else first. It's been happening for so long. I mean, 88, I was 11 years old. You know what I mean? So it's been happening. And I'll tell you another thing. There's all kinds of wars. China's been at war with us for a very long time. It was a currency war. Okay. I'll give you an example. And this is where just understanding finances is important. Is that China, everybody else's currency, the U.S. dollar, everything, the Canadian dollars, we had, they move up and down with the market. China doesn't do that. China basically can fix the rate of their currency, the yuan, right? So if they make it weaker, that means that every other country has to manufacture their goods. So if they want to steal, it's stealing from the rest of the world. It's a war. It's just a financial war. So they've just been holding the yuan down, and that makes every other country. So everyone suffers. Canada, everything's United States. Everyone's been manufacturing their goods in China for as long as we can remember. And then suddenly there's no jobs. There's no factories. So China's been at war with us forever using these same type of tactics. Trump is just strong enough to come in and say, look, it's time for these tariffs. And then China just tariffed Canada. So, I mean,
Mark, hang on right there. I think you make a good point. Trump's calling them out on it. Folks, are coming right back with Mark Quann, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. And we'll continue this tax discussion straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
'Tis the season, the tax filing season. And with layoffs at the IRS, experts are urging folks to file electronically this year to potentially save you from any delays and headaches. If you hire someone to help you file, Amber Gabriel, known as Amber the Tax Lady, says make sure you do your due diligence.
Just because, your friend said to go to this person or your parents say go to this person, go to the IRS website. They have a tax pro directory where you can put in that person's last name and their zip code. And if they pop up in the IRS directory, at least they have invested some type of continuing education to stay abreast on the tax laws.
Gabriel is on that list. She says if something seems off with your paperwork, ask questions.
Once you sign off on that, you are signing that you have reviewed that return and everything is accurate to the best of your ability.
And make sure your preparer puts their name on your return and their PTIN too. That's their preparer tax identification number.
There's almost like a social security number for tax preparers, right? So if you don't see their name or their PT number on there, then you may want to kind of run, because they are considered ghost preparers. And so if you have any issues with your return, when you try to go find them, you may not be able to find them anymore.
The IRS and tax experts also suggest you create an identity protection PIN, or an IP PIN. You do it through the IRS website, and this gives you a specific number to put on your return so that someone else can't just use your social security number to file a return. So it's extra protection. For NBC Connecticut Response, I'm consumer reporter Caitlin Burchell.
Tax time, tax time, tax time. It's upon us. And we're going to continue with some tax tips from Mark Quann. Forgive me, I called him Mark Quinn before. And Mark Quann, you've written the book, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, Use the Buy, Borrow, Die Strategy to Get Rich and Stay Rich. Quite a title, and I love it. I was just telling somebody the other day about that. They were like, I just want to pay off all my debt. And I was like, I don't know any billionaires that are debt-free. What's up with that?
It's very true. It's very true. Just so everybody knows my background, I came from Canada 25 years ago, completely broke. I'm a college dropout, as many entrepreneurs are. I went to business school, financial advising. I was a financial advisor for 15 years. I used to train teams of financial advisors. I've written 4 books now. So I definitely have been down the rabbit hole of taxes and investing. And, this book it's disruptive. It's very disruptive. There's a strategy called buy, borrow, die. It's pretty simple. It's decades old. It's not the 1990s. It was a way to explain how billionaires don't pay taxes. But guess what? Anybody can do it. So I spent the last 4 years proving that anyone can do it. We actually start people with $100 in their brokerage account. So I taught it to plumbers. I've taught it to electricians. I've taught it to factory workers. I've taught it to the guy who built my deck. His name's Freddie. I taught it to him. So anybody can use this strategy, and any American can get rich, avoid taxes, retire early, and pass all their wealth to their heirs, to their family with no taxes. So I proved that anybody can do it. It's currently ranked number 1 on taxes on Amazon, and it's been strong there, and also number 1 in retirement planning.
Mark, I want you to tell us a little bit about it.
All right, cool. So let's start with the basics. Buy assets. So assets would be things that can appreciate in value, especially assets that fight inflation. So we use five assets. We call them the 5 pillars. So it's stocks and ETFs, life insurance, real estate, cryptocurrency, and gold and precious metals. We buy them. We never sell them. If we never sell them, we don't pay taxes. We can borrow from one asset to buy another asset. When we borrow money, we don't pay taxes on that money. We don't have to work for it. And you've circumvented the U.S. tax system because you don't have to go earn that money. And so working hard is highly taxed. Using debt, it requires no work. It's not taxes, and it actually fights inflation. So you're actually fighting inflation with inflation. So that's what the rich do. And I learned how to do it myself. But the funny part is I didn't learn to do it when I was a financial advisor. I left the financial industry in 2018 because most financial advisors actually can't teach this strategy. They would actually probably be fired for what's called selling away. So when I realized that the financial advisors themselves, again, I'm not talking bad about them. They're all great people trying to do good things for people, but they have a big corporation now that has a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders in many cases, and they can't really teach these strategies to their clients. So, the best strategies in the world, this is it. The book is 49 chapters. It's every single tax code that I currently use, and I've taught these strategies to over 500 people in the past 4 years, and most of them are in middle America. I do some tax consulting for wealthy people. They don't even understand this either. So I'm teaching the same things to the guy making $50,000 a year as the guy that makes $5 million a year. So nobody really knows how this thing works. It's pretty fun. Very simple though.
The book is Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. Use the buy, borrow, die strategy to get rich and stay rich. Mark Quann. Now, you've mentioned to buy one of these 5 assets. Is that the only step, or are there more?
Well, okay, let's say you wanted to, let's start with a simple example. Okay, let's say that you wanted to buy the new iPhone. Okay, it was $1,400 for an iPhone. And all right, I want to buy this iPhone. Now, normally you would buy that with money you had to work for. You'd have to go to work, pay taxes, and buy your iPhone with after-tax money. What if you just bought a bunch of stock? You went and bought Apple stock. You said, I want to go buy $3,000 of Apple stock. Then you could press the borrow button. You could take a loan secured by the Apple stock for $1,300, and then you could go buy your Apple phone. What you did is you just purchased your Apple phone with your iPhone with money you didn't have to work for. You didn't have to pay taxes on it. And like you said, you bought a phone with money that technically didn't exist. So yeah, there's a little bit of interest on the loan, but the amount of taxes you saved was huge. The rich aren't trying to get out of debt. They're borrowing from their assets to buy other assets. And it's pretty simple. You could fund your brokerage account, and then you could borrow, take a loan, low interest loan. I currently borrow at 5.25%. There's no credit check. There's no application. It doesn't report to my credit score, and there's no payments on the loans. I know that sounds impossible, too good to be true, but it's all in the book how to start. Again, we start with people with just $100 in a brokerage account. You could then borrow to invest in your business. Well, if you borrowed to invest in your business, you could create a tax deduction on money that doesn't exist, and then you're actually in a tax credit situation where you'd actually get tax refunds. So it's just buying and borrowing is the secret to building wealth, and anybody can do it. I mean, the rich do it with here's how the rich do it. It's just a matter of scaling it up. But they'll have a huge portfolio of stocks. They never sell them. They never pay taxes. They want to buy a piece of artwork, like a really expensive one. They'll take a low-interest loan secured by the stocks. They'll go buy the artwork. They'll put the artwork on the wall, and then they go, hey, I should probably take a loan against the artwork. They'll borrow from the artwork. They'll go buy their gold and precious metals. They put it in a vault, and then they go, all right, I'm going to borrow from the secured by the gold and precious metals, and I go buy some Bitcoin or Bitcoin ETFs, and those appreciate, and then they borrow from those, and they buy some more stocks and ETFs or real estate or fund their business. They're essentially living off of debt, but they're buying assets, and these assets specifically should make money with inflation. That's how they do it.
Fascinating. Folks, the book is Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. And Mark Quann, I guess in sum here to wrap this up, you're borrowing against your assets through your brokerage account, which it seems like a great strategy. Who wants to take the deal? What's the advantage to somebody lending you that money as opposed to just saying, no, go to your bank, we get more money on interest? There's no risk to them. There's only beneficial. So, for example, there's no money it's not like they lent you any money anyways. They just put an entry into a computer. When I borrow money at 5.25% for investing, they just put a bank entry into a computer. They didn't lend me any money. It's not like they shipped some money somewhere. It's just a bank entry. It's secured by my brokerage account, so there's zero risk. It's impossible for me to default on the loan, so why wouldn't they lend me money? They're probably borrowing at 3% and they're charging me 5.25%. They make some money, everybody wins. I can't default on it because it's secured by my stocks and ETFs. Super beneficial. The problem is like a win-win.
It's okay. There's this thing. There's something in the book. It says thinking is just a recycling of the data you gathered in the past. See, we've all been so screwed by big corporations, the government. We think it's totally okay. We go to the bank, they pay us nothing, they charge us huge fees if we jump through some hoops, and then they charge us the highest interest rates. People think that's normal. That's not normal. You've been conditioned to make you think that that's normal. Okay, there's two brokers where you can do that. One's actually Robinhood, by the way. Like, I don't know if anyone's used Robinhood. You can actually do it there. You can literally invest and borrow at low interest rates and use buy, borrow, die there. But it's all in the book, how to do it, how to start. We have a YouTube channel called The Perfect Portfolio. My company is also called The Perfect Portfolio. It's a financial education school where we teach these strategies to hundreds. We've taught it to hundreds of people, around 500. Probably this year we'll have, maybe 10 to 20,000 people we've taught it to. Maybe next year we'll be in the hundreds of thousands, and then we'll have millions of ordinary Americans using this strategy.
Fantastic. I can't wait to give it a shot and have you back and tell you how much money I made or didn't work. You're a fraud. No, I think it's going to work. It makes a lot of sense. As a matter of fact, I was just reading about this the other day, and I was, it's not easy to understand, though, but I was totally reading about borrowing against your brokerage account, and I thought, that's interesting. So, Mark Quann, where do people get a copy of the book?
Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. A lot of bookstores have it right now. It's obviously on you can Kindle it, you can hard copy it, you can get it in the mail. We're actually working on Audible book right now. We're working on that. I should have that in maybe 2 weeks or something on Audible, and people can learn it. But the thing is, here's the thing: is people rely on their CPA or tax advisor to help them avoid taxes. It's never going to work. Okay. The reason that rich people are rich is they understand all the tax codes, and they're like the quarterback, and then they tell their CPA what they want to do. Okay, and people that want to rely on their financial advisor to help get them financially independent, that's not going to work either. Okay, I've crunched the numbers for you. You got to be the quarterback of your own finances. So for this strategy to work, I spent about $60,000 studying finances and spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, learning this stuff, right? So you don't have to do that. But a person would have to get the book and then commit to 100 hours this year learning these strategies and applying them in their finances. And if you're willing to do that, you can probably change your life, change your legacy. We have people that learn this, and then they taught it to their parents, and then they taught it to their kids. And it's pretty powerful. We actually set this up strategy for somebody who gets their first job at In-N-Out Burger or something like that, and they're 18 and they're using Bible or Die. It's all they know. It's only new to us because we're used to this system where we're getting nothing in our bank. They're charging you fees, and then we're borrowing at 24% interest. It's ridiculous, right? It
really is.
Anyways, yeah.
Mark, we're going to pause right here because we've got to wrap up in this segment. But I want people to make sure they get a copy of your book, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. Use the buy, borrow, die strategy to get rich and stay rich. Buy a copy for yourself and one to give away. Mark Quann, thanks for being with us, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. And amigos, your calls, your thoughts, and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our discussion with you all, the American people. And let's hit the phones. I'm going to go to James, Danbury, Connecticut, WLAD. James, go right ahead.
How you doing, Rich? I love the show, and I got to tell you, I like a lot what Trump is doing. You know, if you're not working, you're walking. ICE switches, illegal criminals everywhere. But I just can't figure out why Donald Trump is so soft on Vladimir Putin.
Well, what makes you say he's being soft?
Well, the fact that he's after, when the whole thing about Zelensky going off, I think Zelensky, the way he looked at it was that he was trying to dictate, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to come into the country. We're going to start taking over this. We're going to generate and this and that. And I'm like to myself, well, how does Russia fit into this equation? And he's certainly not going to be happy about that. And he retaliated by bombing the crap out of the country.
But how does that make Trump soft?
What's that?
How is that Trump being soft? 'Cause the way I see it is you've got two people that are at war here, right? You've got Russia that, in effect, invaded Ukraine, and they're going at it. Trump is saying we're trying to get a ceasefire. Putin says, okay, I'm game for a ceasefire. What do you want to do? And Zelensky says, okay, I'm game. I'll come to the White House and talk about it. And I'm going to leave angry after pissing everybody off and saying I'm going to do a minerals deal, but I'm not really going to do it. Putin hasn't signaled anything yet that he wants to do something and then reneged on it. So I don't think Trump's he doesn't have a reason to go any harder. But I mean, on Friday, he announced that there's going to be serious sanctions if they don't come to the table. And here we have today a deal, or at least a deal to get to a deal.
Okay, well, that's really enlightening. I didn't know that, though. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, brother. Thanks for listening to the show, and I appreciate your thoughts as well. WLAD in the building. Let us continue. We go to, let's see who's next on the list here. It's all over the place. Okay, let me see who is next. Tim, Shawboro, North Carolina, WNIS. Go right ahead.
I was just curious, has Drill Baby Drill started yet? Because I got gas like 50 cents cheaper than it was on January 6th, the great day. So just curious.
Yeah, I can't say that I know a ton about that. I know that they've been pushing to end a lot of Biden administration policies and trying to get the whole Drill Baby Drill thing going. But I did also notice that gas was a little cheaper. I also saw the reports today about the egg prices falling, and I think this is what's happening. And I mentioned it earlier, and I guess I'll double down on it here. You know, by no means am I an expert on the economy, but I pay attention to things, I think. And when you have jobs being added because the federal government is creating jobs, let's just, for the sake of argument, say 88,000 new IRS agents that Biden wanted to add, right? Just as an example. You have this, in my opinion, artificial job numbers. When you have the Fed buying T-bills and whatnot, you have another false sense of security, which is going to affect the markets, right? Because you can have the stock markets going, oh, look, this stuff is looking solid. Then, all right, let's relax here. We're good. We're going to allay some of those concerns. But they're there. This is government spending propping things up. So Trump comes in and now he's like, look, we can't continue to do this. This is fake. It's phony. It's fraud. It's a house of cards, right? You literally have the government putting our economy on life support, if you will. We have to allow the economy to heal on its own. And that is what's happening right now. I think we're seeing a very prime example of that daily as our economy starts spitting out the things it doesn't like, trying to heal from this process of government intervention. So I think that's what we're seeing, and we're going to continue to see it for probably another maybe month or two before things level out and get better. I got to take a pause right here, but Tim, thank you for your call. Shout out to North Carolina, WNIS, coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And man, I see we got so many good calls here. Listen to this. We got Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. He wants to talk about Meghan McCain. We've got Joni in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, on KDKA. The drones update. Well, I think Caroline Levitt gave an update on that. She said it was the government. You got Joe in Salem, NTSB on the chopper crash. Tony in Montreal on Fetterman. Frank in Cumberland always has great comments. WCBC. Folks, I'm out of time. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.